So here we are in a Lafreniere-less era. The Sens team is set up and ready to go. Big controversy of the last episode is us getting rid of Alexis Lafreniere, but again, following the set rules that were crafted, along with suggestions from you guys. And yeah, it sucks, but it wouldn't be much of a series if we were to be like, okay, you have to try to sign players. Everyone has to try and take a pay cut. Oh, except for Lafreniere. It's fine. Keep him. But everyone else has to take a pay cut. Well, then what stops us from going from, okay, Lafreniere and Brady Tkachuk. You can't lose Brady. And Thomas Chabot and Eric Brandstrom. No, we can't lose Brandstrom. He doesn't have to take the pay cut either. It makes sense that we had to get rid of Lafreniere. He didn't sign. It is what it is. And at the very least, we got someone decent back in return for him. Cody Glass is now on this team as he slots in, shockingly, on the second line. But what a second line that is. This is the club to begin this season. Brady Tkachuk with Colin White and Taylor Hall. A second line of Shane Pinto, Cody Glass, and Matthew Tkachuk. Max Pacioretty is with Josh Norris and Alex Formenton. And a fourth line of Trey Patterson, Logan Brown, and Tyson Jost, which, goddamn, that's essentially a third line. So the forward core right now is tremendously well set up. Defensively is where we get controversial, because our top pairing is Jacob Bernard-Docker and Eric Brandstrom. Second pairing of Lassie Thompson, Shea Theodore. Our third pairing is Mackenzie Weegar and Thomas Chabot, because Chabot nor Weegar fit this team all that well, except for on that third pairing. But this defense is tremendous thanks to the addition of Shea Theodore. So all in all, we're looking pretty good. And yeah, we lose Lafreniere, but we end up with Glass, we end up with Theodore. Goaltending-wise, we still have Kemper. Wallsted's up to an 82 now as the backup, making his debut. We have Borowiecki and Balcers as the healthy scratches. Things could be looking a hell of a lot worse for this Sens team. And, the fact is, with Alexis Lafreniere, he didn't have a good season last year. He wasn't that good in the playoffs. And he wasn't that good in the regular season before he picked up that injury. That's kind of what made him expendable. Now, whether or not a team would have signed him or not had he not been a grinder, I don't know. I did change him back to a playmaker after trading him, but I genuinely don't think that's the reason as to why he didn't get an offer. I don't think it's that broken, but he had 29 points in 54 games. That is not what we're looking for out of Lafreniere. And for anybody to be like, oh, well, it's realistic that the Sens trade. Is it? It's unrealistic for a team to trade an underperforming young star. I am a Boston Bruins fan, sir and or madam. Is Tyler Seguin a member of the Boston Bruins anymore? Well, it wasn't just because he was underperforming. He had an attitude issue. He was a young party kid. You get the point. Lafreniere had a down year. Well, he didn't score in the playoffs because you made him a grinder. Oh, is that the reason? Is that the reason Lafreniere didn't score? Was because he was a grinder. Well, there's somebody who kind of got shafted and is down in the AHL for this season because of the Pacioretty signing, named Ludwig Naslund, who, he scored in the playoffs. He wasn't great, but he wasn't horrible. So, hey, I didn't want to get rid of Lafreniere, but it happened. He's out, and we'll make the best of it. We get Cody Glass. We have unreal center depth. This team in general is set up incredibly well. And again, in the AHL, you would have gotten a glimpse at it. This team is still pretty sick. Xavier Bourgault, still there. Naslund, Stepan, Pilar, Gruden. We still have a very strong AHL team. The defense leaves a bit to be desired. Tychonic and Poirier are our top options there. But goaltending-wise is where it's interesting. Sjogard might have to be traded at the end of the season. But DePita's still there. Bednar's there. We're set up pretty damn well. But it's unsurprising that a series like this, with the limitations that we have, based on, hey, Eugene Melnyk fucks with his team. Plans don't always go the way you would hope. Hey, guess what? That's what just happened. That's what's consistently happened. This series has absolutely lived up to what you would expect a Melnyk mode to be. As we get ready here, top comments heading into this episode were, hey, the Lafreniere controversy counts as a controversy, only do one wheel spin this season. I am perfectly cool with that, which brings us to finding out what month our controversy is going to be in, and it's going to be relatively early. It's going to be a November controversy for us. So we'll see what happens when we get to November 1st, and really how this is going to affect the team. But looking here, in terms of the overalls and everything, 98 offense, 94 defense, 83 goaltending, we are set up incredibly well right now. Certainly in a position to have continued success. Now it's just a matter of how this team performs. So we ended up signing an AHL assistant coach. That needed to happen. We actually didn't have one at the end of last season when one was fired, if I'm not mistaken. As Taylor Hall picks up a minor injury, he'll recover from that fairly quickly. So we'll see what happens here. We are Lafreniere-less, as we were for the majority, or at least a decent part of last season. Really the majority of the last season, half of it. If you look at the regular season and the playoffs, we didn't have Lafreniere for the majority of the time. So what really changes? We beat Montreal 1-0 in a shootout. Carolina's next, another shootout victory, 3-2. Who's to say we don't have talent? We are now 3-0 with a win over the Anaheim Ducks. St. Louis is next. Can we make it 4 in a row? No, we cannot. It's our first loss of the season. No back-to-backs really to kick things off here. We beat Los Angeles. I should have looked at the schedule ahead to see if we had any back-to-backs. There we go. We will be playing Lafreniere and the Vegas Golden Knights very soon. So we lose to Anaheim. Game against Calgary here. Lose that as well. And we will play our starter here against Arizona as we make it to 5-3. So the Lafreniere Bowl. For the first time, Cody Glass takes on Alexi Lafreniere. Kemper has been lights out so far. Jesper Wallstedt will be making his debut. Cody Glass, 4 points in 8 games to this point in the season. And we'll see what the Vegas Golden Knights are set up like here, especially with Lafreniere in that lineup. He is on the top line with Jonathan Marchessault and Braden Yeager. He has 8 points in 8 games. So, decent little start there for Lafreniere. Again, it's not like, see, I told you shouldn't have traded him. I didn't want to trade him. Rules of the series, I had to. Will we beat the Golden Knights? Yes, we will, though. So the last laugh, goes to Cody Glass. In that situation, Wallstedt wins his NHL debut in relatively impressive fashion. Oh, menu lag. I wanted to try to quick sim to that Bruins game here. So again, we are rapidly approaching a controversy. As much as I hate that. Boston, 4-3-1. We win 7-1. Matt Sjogard suffers a hip pointer down in the AHL. He'll be out until January, so I really think we're going to have to cut ties with Sjogard. We beat Philadelphia as well, so 8-3 through the opening month of the season. We are still atop the division. Things are looking pretty good. Turns out the sky is not falling quite yet. However, it might be, based on what happens with this wheel spin and who we're losing here, and it's going to be a coach. That is horrifying. We are going to be losing a coach. The question, what coach will it be? NHL or AHL? We are losing our head coach. Oh my God. 8-3, and we are losing our head coach. The reason for this, as randomly selected by some of your suggestions, Mr. Scoville here. Turns out we had a nice little team event. And Mr. Scoville got a little bit tipsy at this team event. It wasn't overly fancy, just as an East Side Mario's. It was fine. We had the home loaf. And Landon had a little bit too much of the home loaf and a little bit too much of something else, and he might have backed into Eugene Melnick's Escalade. Because Melnick drives an Escalade. He still thinks that's just the pinnacle of vehicular motivation. Motivation? Innovation. And motivation. That was all the motivation he needed to fire Landon Scoville. Landon, big fan of the home loaf. and a big fan of being unemployed. We are firing Landon Scoville right now. In the aftermath of finding out that news, I forgot to hit the wrong button. So you missed my initial reaction to finding out how fucked our team is now. The chemistry doesn't look that bad until you look in depth and you see that Brady Tkachuk is no longer an elite fit anywhere. Glass certainly can be on the top line. Taylor Hall only fits in on the top line. Pinto, Colin White still fits in better on the second line. We have a lot of work to do. Pacioretty's a rough fit now in the bottom six. This team, that was honestly looking decent. I mean, this might be the best bit of chemistry we can get out of it. So we have the choice now of completely switching up the lines or just sticking with it and seeing what happens. But either way, this team is worse off for what just happened. We're going to sim a month. We're going to see how we do in the aftermath of losing our head coach. And also see whether or not it's worth changing up the lines to get better chemistry in the aftermath of losing our head coach just a month into the season. As Thomas Chabot goes down with a sore shoulder in a 3-1 win over Buffalo. So that'll be Mark Borowiecki stepping in to replace him, as Jesper Wallstedt will get another opportunity here. Borowiecki gets his first game time of the season. He's an amazing fit with this head coach. Good God, what a nightmare situation. As Wallstedt gets crushed by Carolina in his second ever start. Not ideal. Has a difficult job though on the back-to-back, of course. Wow. You can't imagine a more difficult situation to try and overcome than losing your head coach when the team's doing well. It completely messes up the chemistry. We're still hanging around at the top of the division, but Bernard Docker goes down with a slight hip injury as well. And right now we are losing games hand over fist in the aftermath of that firing. So Thomas Chabot really doesn't fit in with Brandstrom, so we'll swap those two back around. We play Detroit. See what we can do here against the brutal team. We do win that game. I do want to get through this month. And like I said, we'll reassess whether or not certain people need to be pulled out of the lineup and if certain other changes needed to be made. I am very thankful that the overwhelming thought seemed to be just leave it be, only have one wheel spin, because if we had to do a second wheel spin this season after losing Lafreniere and our head coach, I don't know what the hell we'd look like. But that is very Eugene, is it not? We sit here, we look like we are good to go. And then it's just controversy after controversy that, this team's still good. But what's going to happen next? Kind of feels like the Senators, around the time they made it to the conference final. Where it's like, just let the team be and good things might happen. As Wallstedt moves to 2-1 on the season. We will take a look at the stats here in a minute, too. Wallstedt now an 83. Darcy Kemper might not be long for this team. We play New Jersey next, 13-7. No overtime or regulation losses yet. Cody Glass sprains his ankle. Won't be out for long. 5-0 shutout win there for Kemper. Rudy Balcers will be in the lineup as we play Columbus. And we lose to Columbus. Tough gig here for Wallstedt, though. He'll be playing Tampa next. It's Kemper against Boston. And Colin White was a bit roughed up. Kemper against Boston, 6-2 win. So we're still atop the division right now. We still have a really good team. Like I said, the whole Lafreniere thing, not my choice. It needed to be done by rules of the series. As we play the struggling Lightning and lose, but hey, it's an overtime loss, so the pity point will help. It's our first pity point of the season. Wallstedt now rocking a 909 through 4 appearances, 20 appearances for Darcy. So try to get Wallstedt a bit more game time, but we haven't had that many back-to-backs. Clearly it's picking up here heading into December. So final game of the month, we win, we'll stay atop the division, and we lose 5-1. Still atop the division, tied with Buffalo in points as of December 1st. Let's take a look. Taylor Hall leading this team in points. Let's see how we're doing. So Brady Tkachuk, 15 points in 25 games is not ideal. Dropping him down to the second line is not ideal though either. Rudolph Balsas has 4 points in 4 games, +4, so he's done pretty well as a secondary option. Taylor Hall doing well, but not elite. I'll take it though. And again, with Taylor Hall, he can only play on that top line. There's no other spot for him. Shane Pinto, 13 points is decent, +6 is decent. 20 penalty minutes for him though. 98 discipline, just in case you wanted to know whether or not that attribute meant fuck all in the sim. It doesn't. He basically has to be in the top 6, particularly on the second line. Colin White, 16 points. Honestly, pretty solid numbers for him. Again, he can play pretty much anywhere, but the second line is where he'll be at his best. Matthew Tkachuk, just 2 goals. We have to seriously consider trading Matthew Tkachuk. He has 4 regular season goals to this point as a send. We have to, it's just been horrible luck for him, but we have to seriously consider cutting ties with Matthew Tkachuk if he cannot find his goal-scoring ability. And he's another guy who fits in on the second line. And with this coach right now, there's a lot of players who are only going to thrive if they're on that second line. And getting something for Tkachuk might not be the worst option. 6 points in 25 games for Pacioretty. It's okay, but it's not great. Could somebody do better? Probably. 9 points for Norris. He can fit in anywhere, basically, which is good news for us. Just 5 points for Alex Formenton. I don't know how many times we have to give Formenton an opportunity, but man, it might be time to cut ties with him too. Batherson, continuing to do pretty damn well no matter where we play him. Logan Brown doing very well despite not being a great fit for the fourth line. And Tyson Jost, 8 goals. Jesus, 9 points. Again, we didn't necessarily need him, but we'll be able to cash in on his value. But he's done pretty well for us. So you can see who's struggling. The debate is change up line combinations or just change up personnel. And right now we're looking at Pacioretty, Formenton, and Matthew Tkachuk as questionable players. For the record, Cody Glass, 8 points in 21 games. We are currently losing the Lafreniere trade. That's not surprising. Especially when you trade a guy when you don't want to trade him. Bernard Docker, just 4 points, but a +7. Again, fits him best on that third pairing now. Brandstrom, 16 points, looking pretty good. Fits him best in the top 2 pairings. Lassie Thompson, 6 points, a +12. Not quite what you'd expect from an OFD. Shea Theodore has 11 assists, he's a +14. And then Mackenzie Weegar, 8 points and a +5. Not too bad, much better fit for the team. Thomas Chabot, 9 points and a +8. Goaltending. Kemper rocking a 9.21, Wallstead a 9.10. So goaltending, we don't have much to worry about. Biggest issues right now, Glass, Tkachuk, Pacioretty, and Formenton not performing to the level that we need them to. You look down in the AHL. Max Zimmer, who we just signed. Koivula, Bourgault, Naslund, Stepan, Philippe, Pilar, Gruden, Kastelik. These are all guys who could play on that fourth line if they're a fit. And you look again, like I said, at Pacioretty, Formenton, Tkachuk. I don't know who's safe and for how much longer. How much of a leash, do we give these players is the question. And because I know people are going to ask, we'll go over to Vegas, where Lafreniere has 20 points in 26 games. It sucks, obviously. I guess the big question when it comes to Matthew Tkachuk is whether or not anybody's out there who would be worth the trade. But, you're talking about, if we were to move Tkachuk and Cody Glass, I'm just going to throw it out there. We might not need to try and get anybody who's already on the team trade block like Cody Glass was. That might be cause for a silly time trade. Not even saying Darnell Nurse, because he's way too goddamn expensive, or Ryan Ellis, for that matter. But if you want to talk about a potential silly season. Fortunately, again, there is nobody that's looking to be moved by their team. But I'm just going to throw it out there. Obviously, the cap is an issue. But you look at Cody Glass's value. You look at Matthew Tkachuk's value. There is not a player in this league that we could not trade for in terms of value. Whether or not another team would do it or not, that's the question, right? But there is not a player that we could not trade for. So, who's to say? Right? Who's to say? We have options. Numerous options. Guys, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think. Is it a matter of personnel changes or just try chemistry changes first and then personnel changes? But Lafreniere and a head coach, what's the next domino to fall? I can only imagine.